Hello everyone, let me hope all is well with you. So in this video I'm going to take you through how to disassemble and assemble a laptop or a PC. And the PC I'm using, it's called HP 240 G8. HP 240 G8, that's the PC, or that's the laptop I'm using. So with that being said, let us begin. So this is the inside of my PC, or this is the system of my PC. This is how it looks like. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to disassemble every component step by step. So the first component you should always begin with is the battery or the power supply of a laptop or a desktop computer. Why? Because it is crucial to first remove the battery for safety and to prevent damage to the internal components. So next step, I'm going to remove these two connectors, one for touchpad and another one for keyboard. So the next step is to install the hard drive. So we'll simply lift the hard drive and remove it in its slot. So the importance of a hard drive is to provide a permanent storage for everything, like your operating system, Windows, Mac, Linux. It also provides a permanent storage for your installed applications, your documents, photos, music, videos, and many others. So it's a crucial component. So the next step is to remove the RAM sticks. You unlock the clips on either sides of the RAM to pop it up and pull it out. So in my PC, I have two RAM sticks, and this is important because it provides a much faster data transfer speeds and a smoother operation compared to a single stick. In other words, having two RAM sticks, it boosts performance, especially in gaming, multitasking, and so forth. So the next step is to uninstall the Wi-Fi card, and the role of a Wi-Fi card is to enable a wireless internet connectivity, allowing you to access networks, browsing on the internet, streaming your favorite movies, your games, and all that. So that's the importance of a Wi-Fi card. So the next step is to install the USB port board, and its use is to connect external devices like flash drives, phone to the motherboard. Still on the USB port board, there is that blue cable connected to it. It is called a flat flexible cable, or you can call it a ribbon cable, and its use is to carry data and power signals between the USB port board and the motherboard. Another step is to install the cooling fan. We're going to disconnect the fan cable from the motherboard and lift the fan out of the computer. So you may ask, what is the importance of a cooling fan? So a cooling fan allows cool air in and lets out hot air. and this prevents the CPU from overheating, which causes performance slowdown, like system instability, even permanent hardware damage. So a cooling fan ensures better performance, reliability, a longer lifespan for the device, especially during intensive tasks like gaming or video editing. So that's the importance of a cooling fan. It is so crucial. So the next step is to install this black metal, this long metal, which is called the heatsink. So the purpose of a heatsink is to pull heat away from the CPU or the processor. And the thermal paste we put on the CPU, it is used to transfer heat from the CPU into the heatsink. Then the heat pulled by the heatsink from the CPU or the processor will travel through the copper heat pipe to the fan or the cooling fan. Then that cooling fan will blow that heat out, and then that cooling fan will allow cool air to enter or to come in the CPU, and that's what prevent our machines or our laptops not overheat and shut down. And as you can see, this is the heatsink with thermal paste on, and this is the CPU with thermal paste on. Moving on forward, another step is to install our speakers. There are two speakers, one on the left and one on the right. I will also disconnect the speaker's cable from its slot, and that speaker cable, its purpose is to connect the stereo speakers to the motherboard. This is the speaker cable. I'm going to disconnect it from its slot. I will also disconnect this cable. It is called a battery connector, and its purpose is to connect the laptop's internal battery to the motherboard. It also supplies direct current power to the system when not plugged into the charger. That's some of the purpose of this battery connector. I will also disconnect this other cable, this wider one, and it is called display cable, and its purpose is to connect the motherboard to the laptop screen. And another purpose, it also carries video signals so images can appear on a display monitor. So that's the purpose of the display cable. Now it's time to remove the speakers out. I'm done disconnecting all the cables from their slots, the speaker cable, the display cable, and the battery connector. So on your screen is the touchpad board, and behind it is the touchpad click or button board. And the purpose of the two, for the case of touchpad board, it detects touch movement, and for the touchpad click or button board, it handles left and right click. So as you can see, we have successfully disassembled all our components from our motherboard, and that's how our motherboard looks like without the components attached to it. That's how it looks like. We have installed all the components. So let us name our components again. So this is a USB port board, and its purpose is to connect external devices to the motherboard. This is how it looks like. Another component is RAM sticks, a double RAM sticks, and they increase system performance and responsiveness. Another component is a CPU heatsink. It pulls heat from the CPU, and a CPU heat pipe is attached to it, and it transfers waste heat away from the CPU. This is our CPU, and is responsible for processing instructions and running the operating system and applications. This is a hard drive, and it serves as a primary storage for operating system, applications, documents, files, and many others. This is a cooling fan, and its purpose is to allow cool air in and let out hot air to prevent overheating, especially the CPU, thereby ensuring stable performance and extending component life. This is a battery, and its purpose is to supply the necessary electricity for the CPU, screen, and other components. And lastly, this is a Wi-Fi card, and it allows wireless connection, or it allows us to connect to the internet. So those were our main components that were attached to the motherboard. So with the process of assembling every component back, I'm going to start with the touchpad button board. I will also connect the touchpad connectors back in their respective slots. So we are going to install every component back step by step. So I'm done installing the touchpad area. Next, I'm going to connect the keyboard connector back in its slot. Next, I'm going to install back the cooling fan and put its cable in its slot. Next step is to install back the Wi-Fi card in its slot. The next step is to install back the USB port board in its position. I'm going to connect the flat flexible cable back in its slot, and that slot is found on the USB port board. You have to be careful when you're connecting back those cables back in their slots. So the next step is to install back the speakers in their position and also connecting back the speaker cable in its slot, as well as the display cable back in its slot, and also connecting back the battery connector in its slot. And as I said, when you're dealing with cables, you have to be careful when you're removing them in their slots and when you're putting them back in their slots. Be careful when you're doing so. The next step is to install back the CPU heatsink in its position, and make sure it is placed on the CPU the right way. And after placing it on the CPU, then go ahead and screw in the nuts. So we are left with few steps to finish, and the next step is to install back the RAM sticks. So to install the RAM sticks, if you have two or if you have one, push the RAM down until you hear clips clicking. So when you hear clips clicking, you will know that you did it the right way. And the next step is to install the hard drive. Make sure you place it in the right position. And after fitting it in, insert its cable in its slot. Moving on forward, get your battery and install it back in its right position. And after, you screw the nuts in. Yeah, so finally, get your back cover and then cover your PC hardware system. Yes, so everyone, so guys, thank you for watching. If you have made it this far, congratulations. You have successfully learned how to disassemble and assemble your laptop. God bless you all.